Struggle all you want, it amuses me.
In the heart of the Roman Empire, where power meant survival and family often meant danger, there lived a young emperor named Nero. His name would later become a symbol of cruelty, madness, and fear. But behind his rise to power lies a darker and more personal story, one that history often tells quickly, without fully revealing its emotional horror. This is the story of what he did to his own mother, Agrippina the Younger, a woman who gave him everything, and in the end, paid the ultimate price. Nero did not become emperor by chance. His path was carefully built long before he wore the crown. His mother, Agrippina, was one of the most ambitious women in Roman history. She was not simply a mother who loved her child. She was a strategist, a survivor, and someone who understood power better than most men of her time. She had grown up in a dangerous world, surrounded by betrayal and political games. She learned early that trust could be deadly, and control was everything. From the moment Nero was born, Agrippina saw something in him, not just a son, but a future emperor. She worked carefully and patiently, moving through the complex world of Roman politics. She married the Emperor Claudius, strengthened her position, and ensured that Nero would be chosen as heir over others. This was not luck. This was planning, manipulation, and relentless ambition. When Nero finally became emperor, he was still very young. He did not yet understand the full weight of power. And so, in those early days, Agrippina ruled through him. She guided his decisions, controlled his environment, and made sure her influence remained strong. For a time, it seemed like a perfect system. The empire was stable, and Nero appeared to be a promising ruler. But beneath the surface, something was slowly changing. As Nero grew older, he began to feel the pressure of control. He started to realize that he was not truly in charge. Every decision he made seemed to pass through his mother. Every relationship he tried to form was watched, judged, and often blocked. He was emperor in name, but not in freedom. This realization began to disturb him. At first, it was only discomfort, a quiet feeling that something was wrong. But over time, that feeling grew stronger. It turned into frustration, then resentment. He wanted to make his own choices. He wanted to live without constant supervision. But Agrippina would not allow it. She reminded him again and again that everything he had came from her. Without her, he would be nothing. These words stayed with Nero. They began to shape how he saw his mother, not as a protector, but as a controller. Not as family, but as a threat. And in Rome, threats were not ignored. As tension grew between them, Nero began to distance himself. He removed his mother from the palace, limited her access to power, and tried to build a life separate from her influence. But Agrippina was not someone who accepted defeat easily. She pushed back. She tried to regain control. She reminded him of her power, her connections, and her importance. This created a dangerous situation, because now, the relationship was no longer about family. It was about power. And in a world where power meant survival, even a mother could become an enemy. Nero's thoughts began to darken. He started to believe that as long as his mother lived, he would never truly be safe. What if she decided to replace him? What if she supported someone else? What if everything he had was taken away? These fears grew inside him, feeding his paranoia, and slowly, a terrible idea formed in his mind. He began to think about killing her. At first, this thought may have shocked him. But in Rome, such actions were not unheard of. Power often required extreme decisions, and Nero convinced himself that this was not personal, it was necessary. His first attempt was quiet. Poison. Poison was a common method in Roman politics. It left little evidence and allowed for a clean explanation. Nero arranged for his mother to be poisoned, expecting a quick and silent end, but the plan failed. Agrippina survived. This failure made everything worse. Now there was risk. If she suspected anything, the situation could turn against him quickly. The tension between them increased, and trust disappeared completely. Nero knew he had to try again. This time, he created a more complex plan. He invited his mother on a journey, pretending to reconcile. It was a peaceful setting, calm and controlled. Agrippina accepted the invitation, perhaps believing that the worst had passed. But it had not. The boat she traveled on was secretly designed to collapse. The idea was simple. In the middle of the sea, the structure would fail, and she would drown. It would look like a tragic accident. Everything was prepared carefully. But once again, things did not go as planned. When the boat collapsed, Agrippina did not die. She managed to survive, escaping the water and reaching safety. In that moment, everything became clear. She knew. She understood that her own son had tried to kill her not once, but twice. There was no more illusion of safety, no more possibility of trust. Now, both of them understood the truth. And for Nero, this meant only one thing. There was no turning back. After 2 failed attempts, he could not risk failure again. As long as Agrippina lived, she was a threat. She knew too much. She could expose him. She could turn others against him. So Nero made his final decision. This time, there would be no tricks. No poison. No accidents. Only certainty. He sent soldiers to her home. When they arrived, the situation was clear. There was no hiding, no excuses. Agrippina faced them, fully aware of what was about to happen. Ancient sources describe a powerful and chilling moment. Instead of begging for mercy, she spoke with strength. She reportedly told them to strike her womb, the place that had given birth to Nero. It was a final act of defiance, a reminder that the emperor who now wanted her dead had once depended on her for life. The soldiers carried out their orders, and just like that, Agrippina was gone. Nero had achieved what he believed he needed. But the story did not end there, because after the murder, something changed inside him. Instead of feeling safe, he became more unstable. Reports suggest that he was haunted by what he had done. Whether through guilt or fear, his behavior became more extreme. He grew more paranoid, more suspicious, and more disconnected from reality. He tried to control the story, telling the public that his mother had planned to kill him. He claimed it was self-defense. In a system ruled by fear, many accepted this version, or at least pretended to. But the truth remained, and it spread quietly. Over time, Nero's rule became more chaotic. He focused less on leadership and more on personal desires. He punished those he feared. He trusted fewer people. The empire began to weaken under his control. The same system of power that had lifted him up now began to turn against him. Allies became uncertain. Enemies grew stronger. And Nero, once protected by his position, found himself increasingly alone. The story of Nero and his mother is not just about one act of violence. It is about what happens when power replaces trust, when fear replaces love, and when ambition destroys family. History often tells this story quickly, as just another event in a long timeline of Roman rulers. But when we slow down and look closely, we see something much deeper. We see a young man shaped by control, growing into fear. We see a mother driven by ambition, losing the very thing she tried to protect. And we see a moment where power became more important than humanity. In the end, Nero did not just kill his mother. He destroyed the last connection to his past. And perhaps, in doing so, he also destroyed the part of himself that could have been different. That is why this story still feels so disturbing today. Because it is not just about ancient Rome. It is about the choices people make when power, fear, and family collide. And sometimes, the most horrifying stories are not the ones hidden in darkness, but the ones history tried to make us forget. In the powerful and dangerous world of the Roman Empire, where trust was rare and ambition could destroy even the closest bonds, there lived a young ruler named Nero. His name would later become a symbol of cruelty and madness. But behind his rise to power lies a deeply disturbing and emotional story, one that involves betrayal, fear, and the murder of his own mother, Agrippina the Younger. Nero's story does not begin with him alone. It begins with Agrippina, a woman who understood power better than most men of her time. She was born into a powerful Roman family and grew up surrounded by politics, danger, and constant struggle. From a young age, she learned that survival depended on control. She saw how quickly people could rise and fall, how easily trusts could be broken, and how important it was to stay ahead of others. When Nero was born, Agrippina did not just see a son. She saw an opportunity. She carefully planned his future, step by step. She married the Emperor Claudius, strengthening her position at the center of Roman power. Through influence and careful decisions, she made sure that Nero would be chosen as the next emperor. This was not simple luck. It was the result of years of effort, manipulation, and ambition. When Nero finally became emperor, he was still very young. He did not fully understand the responsibility or the danger that came with power. In those early years, Agrippina remained close to him, guiding his decisions and controlling much of what happened around him. She acted almost like a ruler behind the throne. For a time, this arrangement worked. The empire remained stable, and Nero appeared to be a promising leader. But beneath the surface, something was slowly changing. As Nero grew older, he began to feel the weight of his situation. He started to notice that he was not truly free. Every decision seemed to pass through his mother. Every part of his life was watched and controlled. Even his personal relationships were influenced by her. At first, he felt uncomfortable, but slowly, that discomfort turned into frustration. He wanted independence. He wanted to make his own choices. But Agrippina refused to step back. She reminded him again and again that everything he had came from her. Without her, he would not be emperor. Without her, he would have no power. These words stayed in his mind, slowly changing how he saw her. She was no longer just his mother. She was a constant reminder of his dependence. And in the world of Roman politics, dependence was weakness. As time passed, the bond between them began to break. Nero started to distance himself. He moved his mother away from the center of power, reducing her influence and limiting her role in his life. But Agrippina was not someone who accepted being pushed aside. She pushed back. She tried to regain control, reminding Nero of her importance and her influence. This created tension between them, turning their relationship into a struggle for power. What had once been a connection of family was now something much darker. It became a battle. Nero began to feel something new fear. He started to believe that his own mother might try to remove him from power. In Rome, betrayal was common, even within families. If Agrippina had helped him become emperor, what was stopping her from supporting someone else? This thought grew stronger over time. Fear turned into suspicion. Suspicion turned into anger, and anger slowly became something much more dangerous. Nero began to think about removing his mother permanently. At first, this idea may have seemed impossible. Killing his own mother was not just a political act, it was something deeply unnatural. But in the world he lived in, power often came before everything else, even family. He convinced himself that this was necessary. His first plan was quiet and simple. Poison. In ancient Rome, poison was a common method of assassination. It was silent, effective, and often left little evidence behind. Nero arranged for poison to be given to Agrippina, expecting that it would solve his problem quickly, but the plan failed. Agrippina survived. This failure made the situation even more dangerous. Now there was a risk that she might suspect what had happened. The trust between them, already broken, was now completely gone. Nero knew he had to act again. This time, he planned something more complex. He invited his mother on a journey, pretending to rebuild their relationship. It seemed like a peaceful and sincere gesture. Agrippina accepted, perhaps hoping that their conflict had ended. But this was not reconciliation. It was another attempt at murder. The boat she was given was secretly designed to collapse while at sea. The plan was that it would break apart suddenly, causing her to fall into the water and drown. It would appear to be a tragic accident. Everything was prepared carefully. But once again, things did not go as planned. When the boat collapsed, Agrippina did not die. She managed to survive, escaping the water and reaching safety. At that moment, everything became clear. She understood that her own son had tried to kill her, not once, but twice. This realization changed everything. There was no longer any possibility of trust or peace between them. Now, both of them understood the truth, and for Nero, this meant only one thing. There was no turning back. As long as Agrippina lived, she was a threat. She knew too much. She could expose him, turn others against him, or even try to remove him from power. Nero decided that this time, there would be no chance of failure. No poison, no accidents, only certainty. He sent soldiers to her home. When they arrived, there was no confusion about why they were there. Agrippina understood what was happening. She faced them with a strength that surprised many who later heard the story. Ancient accounts describe a powerful and chilling moment. Instead of begging for mercy, she spoke with calm defiance. She reportedly told the soldiers to strike her wound place where Nero had been born. It was a final message, a reminder that the man who now wanted her dead had once depended on her for life. The soldiers carried out their orders. Agrippina was killed. With that act, one of the most shocking events in Roman history was complete. But the story does not end with her death, because after the murder, Nero did not find peace. Instead, something inside him began to break. He became more unstable, more fearful, and more unpredictable. Some reports suggest that he was haunted by what he had done, troubled by thoughts and visions of his mother. Whether these stories are fully true or partly exaggerated, they reflect a deeper reality. The act changed him. He became more paranoid, trusting fewer people and reacting harshly to anything he saw as a threat. He tried to control how the story was told, claiming that Agrippina had planned to kill him and that he had acted in self-defense. Some people believed this, others did not. But in a world ruled by fear, few were willing to speak openly against the emperor. The truth remained hidden beneath the surface. Over time, Nero's behavior became more extreme. He focused less on ruling and more on his own desires. He became more disconnected from reality, more interested in entertainment and personal pleasure than in leadership. The empire began to suffer. The same system of power that had helped him rise now began to turn against him. Trust disappeared. Support weakened. Enemies grew stronger. Nero, once protected by his position, began to feel isolated, alone. The story of Nero and Agrippina is not just about politics or power. It is about something much deeper. It is about what happens when fear replaces trust, when ambition replaces love, when power becomes more important than family. In the end, Nero achieved what he believed he needed. He removed the person he feared the most, but he also lost something far more important. He lost the last connection to his past. He lost the one person who had shaped his life from the beginning. And perhaps, in doing so, he also lost a part of himself. That is why this story still feels so disturbing today. Because it is not just about an emperor and his mother. It is about human nature. It shows how far people can go when they believe their survival depends on it. It shows how power can change relationships, turning love into suspicion and family into enemies. And it reminds us that sometimes the most horrifying acts are not committed by strangers, but by those who are closest to us. History often presents Nero as a symbol of madness and cruelty, but when we look deeper, we see something more complex. We see fear, we see pressure, we see a young man shaped by control, trying to break free, but losing himself in the process. And we see a mother whose ambition helped her son rise to the highest position in the world, only to become the greatest threat he believed he faced. In the end, their story is not just a piece of ancient history. It is a warning, a reminder of what can happen when power, fear, and family collide in the most dangerous way possible. And perhaps that is why, even after so many centuries, this story still stays with us, because it forces us to ask a difficult question. How far would someone go to keep power, even if it meant destroying their own blood?